Hey guys, it's another episode of Wake and Make. Glad to have you here. Looking forward. Today is another model down our path of MCP. We're going to be doing Iron Man, the old RDJ himself. So lots of reds, lots of yellows. But yeah. So I just got done throwing us a little prime on here. We're going to do our, wait for that to dry, then do our zenithal and our get started on our underlayer. So right off the bat here, I'm going to go ahead and speed this up a little bit. The old trick where you take the airbrush and you're just blowing air in there. Yeah, this is fun, right guys? We enjoy this one. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting a hold of this one. Iron Man's a really big model as far as the MCU is concerned. All you guys that might have grown up with those movies over time, that's the one that kind of started it all. So we got to make sure we do old Tony right by this here. This is starting to look pretty dry here. So right after this, we're actually going to throw on a little bit of two thin coats Enchantress purple. And then right over the top of that, I'm just going to do a little bit of Sword Hilt burgundy. And then we're going to do our zenithal over these two colors. These are two very dark, nice shadow tones. And I don't want a whole lot of black left over in this one. So, and if you guys are out there in chat, definitely go ahead and say hello. Say what's up, come and greet me, bother me, distract me, what have you. Taking a quick look here, man, this guy's taken a while to dry. And he's got a couple holidays. Usually I like to have these models primed beforehand, but like I said, he was taking a little while to dry. Probably what happened is I didn't shake the bottle of paint enough. I don't know how many times you guys do silly things like that, but I know I do. Stupid little mistakes, but not that big of a deal. Nice. Okay. While we're waiting on that, I wanted to take a few seconds here to look at last time's project and see where we left off. I'm planning on finishing up all these models off camera, and then what we'll do is we'll have an episode maybe where we go through all of these, what has changed and what hasn't, etc. You know, looking at this now, this Red Skull looks a little bit better than I remembered him looking, so that isn't too bad. What about Cap here? I'm sure you guys remember these more than I do. You know, it's doing these live on camera can be a little distracting and jarring. So sometimes you get done and you're not even sure what exactly you painted. Oh yeah. See, and you can see on this guy, we didn't spend too long on our blends here. They're pretty rough and chunky. I'm going to go back and I'm going to show how I clean up some of that. But if you're just going for standard battle ready, you see that's not too bad at all. You get from a distance, you know, arm's reach, like you're going to be looking at them. You get all the nice shapes, some nice shadows and stuff. So that's hopefully the goal with these, to be able to get them done pretty darn quick. Thought I heard somebody sneaking in here. There's always these hobby goblins wandering in and out of this studio when you're trying to do stuff. So I'm looking forward. I still haven't played a game of MCP yet. Once I get my squad of Avengers done, that's the plan. And I'm curious how many of you guys out there have maybe played the game, what you think of it so far, Are you into these kind of skirmish games or what have you? Speaking of games, I'm actually going to be doing my first stint at DMing a game. Obviously this is in miniatures, but you know, role-playing games, very similar. I'm going to be doing a game of Morkborg. I'm pretty excited about that. I can't really talk about the encounter that I have planned because one of them might be watching right now. And I don't want to ruin the surprise. Alright, I think we got him nice and dry enough so we can start adding color finally. Again, if you plan on streaming ever, make sure you prime those models well ahead of time so you're not doing it on camera like other people. But yeah, I'm excited about DMing this game, Morkborg. It's I believe it's a Swedish game. Very simple rules, kind of set up for one-shots, very grim dark, kind of the Dark Souls of role-playing games if you want to use the old overused meme about it. So yeah, I'm excited about doing that. I notice, you know, nowadays we kind of live in an age, a golden time of board games. There are so many freaking board games and different role-playing games and things like that out there nowadays. There's all these cool little indie projects, from your Trench Crusades to your Morkborgs to what is it, Ravaged Star, I believe, is another smaller game, or are they just doing models? Either way, it's all very cool stuff. You know, the advent of 3D printing and making design tools more readily available has really changed the landscape as far as this kind of stuff is concerned. All right, now we're going to go ahead and add some color here. Like I said, we're going to start off with that Enchantress purple. As soon as I find a pipette. All right, that's fine. All right. Grab this brush here. There we go. Now I'm actually using, I wanted to bring this product in, the Tamiya X20A thinner. This stuff's really great. I find that through an airbrush you can get really nice blends and what have you. It really thins it down well. We're also going to be using another Tamiya product in a minute or two here. We're going to be using the Tamiya X2 White after I get these shadow layers on here. There we go. All right. Now this is that Enchantress purple. And we're going to kind of do a pretty heavy all over with this one. You still want to be kind of careful, obviously. turn down that a little bit there. That's better. Open it up a little bit and I'll come at it from underneath here. And like I said, we just want to get all over with this. This is basically our darkest shadow. Hold on, I need a little more thinner in that. That's better. Got to make sure you thin these paints out the appropriate amount. I know that's one of the things is it's really hard to say, oh, thin this much or thin that much because every paint is so different. This is a thicker paint. It's got a little more body on it. So we definitely want to make sure we thin it enough so we're not getting crazy splatters or speckles too much or anything like that. Let's see here. Okay. Nice. Like I said, we just want to make sure we get this all over here. We're going to go ahead and get down here as well, because that's all going to have like a blastness to it. Now a lot of this color is going to get covered over. We're basically, just like I said, building up our shadows just so we're not stuck with just plain black. Okay. All right, next we're going to clean that out. We're going to hit this with a zenithal, a real fast zenithal. Ooh. Right here, this Sword Hilt Burgundy. And then after that, that's when we're going to set up our whites, and we're going to use some red contrast to kind of build those reds. And then when we go to work in our yellows, we're just going to take that red, highlight up from there to build out those yellows. So keep it nice and not too complicated with him. The majority of this model is going to be red. And the majority of the model, if it's not going to be red, there's also going to be yellows. So it's all warm colors that we're setting up here. And then our bits and pieces, which we probably won't get to today, but the his arc reactor, his repulsors, those will be more of a blue to contrast that red. To give us a nice, maybe some OSL in a few places on the hands and on the feet, things like that. But obviously we need to get the red armor, red and yellow armor done first before we can mess around with any of that. So, but yeah, if there's anybody in chat there, definitely say hello. Always looking forward to chat with a few of you guys. Besides, otherwise I have to sit here and talk to myself the whole time. And I don't know how crazy that sounds. Using a little more of that Tamiya thinner. I had heard about it quite a bit, the thinner and the white, and I wanted to give it a shot. And man, I was really impressed. You know, whites through an airbrush generally can be, we'll say, problematic. So having something to kind of help that out. Now watch today. Today it'll be super splattery and I'll look like a fool, because that's how it usually goes. But ideally, that should go on quite smooth. All right. You know, whenever you're looking for a tool, it seems like you can't find it. There we go. Now we're using that, setting up that burgundy. It's going to go over the top of that purple. And this is going to add some warmth to our shadows as well here, up at the top areas. Giving the top and the bottom a little variance in temperature. Because that's how we like to do it. That variance in temperature really helps out in determining a difference, a nice contrast between the top and the bottom of the model, the shadows for the highlights, etc. Alright, I'm going to come at this guy right at this angle right here, because I think this to be my hero angle right there. So, we like to shoot past the model. Let me open that up a little bit. And then we're going to do the opposite side over here. And this gives us like a lights coming from the top, but also a little bit at this angle, a little bit at this angle. And I like to go opposite, that way our shadows are also symmetrical with each other and they end up in kind of the sides there. And that way they're kind of hidden. So you've got your two front and back kind of hero shots, and then the sides are all right, you know. As you see, I thinned this down quite a bit. So I can kind of add it on a little bit at a time, put some on, let it dry. Alright, now I want to come in, now that I've gotten the majority of that there, I want to come in and brighten up some specific parts. There we are. Alright, let me add just a little bit more of that burgundy so we can pop it just a couple times. Right in a couple spots just to add a little more of this, a little more opaque. Give that a little backflow to mix it up there. Now let me blow a little air on here, get this drying a little faster. I don't know about you guys, but I hate dry times. You literally have to sit and watch paint dry. Like, that's no fun at all. There is the hair dryer trick. We do have a little hair dryer for that. But this model being as small as he is, and we're doing thin layers, it shouldn't necessarily be necessary. And you see we were getting that red tint right on the top there. Right on the shoulders, top of the hand, top of the legs, top of the butt. Got to get the butt. That's like completely necessary. That's not America's ass. I mean, it's Tony Stark's. He's not Cap, but you know, you still got to respect it. You got to respect the butts. All right. So now we got to let that dry. I'm going to clean out this airbrush real quick. And now we're actually going to do, once that's dry, this airbrush is clean, we're actually going to do our zenithal over the top here. And then we're going to lay on some red contrast. And that should give us a pretty good red. This is not a specific recipe that I tried beforehand. This is just what I cooked up. Thinking about how I want to do Iron Man's red. So we're going to see how it works together. Could be good, could be bad, could be ugly. There's all the possibilities. Ooh. That spurted on me a little bit. I am interested to see, I don't know if you guys saw at Adepticon, there was some new MCP models. At least that's what I saw online. Who knows? It could have been AI. But I did see a Jubilee model, so pretty excited about that. They got some Phoenix models coming out. They got a lot of cool new models coming out, so it seems like this game is blowing up a little bit at a time, which is kind of cool. Always being a Marvel Comics fan myself, this is a game made for me, so to speak. All right, we're going to do a little bit of the air trick again real fast. And now that that's dry, you can kind of see that purple in the shadows, more of a reddish, warmish tone on top. It's a nice place to be as far as our reds go. All right, so I'm going to grab some of that thinner, that Tamiya thinner that I've been messing with. And we don't need much of this. This stuff works pretty good. You can actually overthin quite easily with this when using it. All right, and now I'm going to be using this X2 white. And I have tried this a few times before, doing some Trench Crusade models. This stuff does smell kind of funky. All right. We had a little left over of that burgundy in there, but that's okay. Again, this is all underlayer stuff. I am getting a few sputters here, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. All right, and like I said, we're just going to be slowly adding this. We want to kind of take our time because this is going to be doing most of the highlighting for us here. We want to take advantage as much as possible of this airbrush. so we're not overdoing it, let's go ahead and hit the back here. And here we're going to do something, we want a little bit more dramatic lighting. You can kind of see where I'm getting it there. I want that lighting a little more dramatic on this side. So we'll hit these tops of the shoulders really good. And then we're going to come in and just kind of mist right there. There we go. You just want to look around the model. See, we've got our main lights now. And now we just want to look around and kind of brighten up where we can. Hold on, let me clean this old airbrush so we're not sputtery. All right, let's brighten up a few spots here. Since that's our hero angle, we want to go opposite on this side. There we go. Just brightening this up here. And before we add our contrast, we're also going to hit this up with a matte varnish. Just a quick little matte coat to this paint likes to dry very glossy. So yeah, you do kind of want to hit that with a matte coat. Now let's see. That's kind of our angle there. We're going to come in one more time from above. We're going to mist this. Do the same thing on the other side. Mist it. Alright, yeah, that's looking pretty good for our zenithal, I think. Let's go ahead and clean out this airbrush here. And you see, that's pretty quick. We laid down some quick shadows. Got our zenithal done. And ideally, once we get once we get done with the contrast, whoops. Got to be careful with that. Once we get done with the contrast, we'll have some nice midtones and shadows and maybe even a few highlights already set up so that we can come in and just kind of edge highlight a lot of these panels and get this guy done very fast. I'd like to see us get as much of this model done today as possible. You know, you got to make sure that this old airbrush is super duper clean before we throw this matte varnish on here. There we go. Maybe you guys can see here before I matte varnish it. It's got a shine on it. And you just want to knock out that shine so that it'll take the next few stages of paint a little bit better. You can kind of see our zenithal there. See those shadows running down the sides. I'm going to see how it looks after this matte varnish, but we might even do a quick little dry brush of some white, like a trooper white, just to add a few little edges and things like that before we throw our red on. So Go ahead and grab some of this mat here. Here we go. Nothing too fancy about this step. We're just applying a matte varnish. Just move around the model a lot. That's all. In fact, I'm going to open it up a little more. Turn this guy upside down all the way. Make sure we get all these little under bits too. QQ. Let that dry for a second, and then we'll take a look at it and see how he looks. Clean out the old airbrush. For those of you out there who haven't gotten an airbrush, this is a lot of what you do with an airbrush. It's a lot of cleaning. It's a lot of unclogging. But what they allow you as a tool, both in speed and technique, different things you can do, is definitely well worth it. But it will be a pain in the ass. All right, let's take a quick look. Yeah, he's looking pretty good. He's got a few speckles on there. I probably could have used a really good clean on the airbrush before I got started, but it's not even going to show up in the end product here. So this is all just underpainting. Yeah, that's a cool lighting, cool angle. Nice. I think we are going to grab that dry brush. And we're going to grab a little bit of Trooper White. Throw on our palette over here, because we might use it somewhere else on the model. And as with dry brushing, at least from what I've been told, start with the biggest possible brush you think you can get away with. Get that in there. Test that out on the old hand. I think we could use a little more paint, to be honest with you. Hope you guys like my texture palette. It's got a very skin texture, it being my hand and all.
What's going on, everybody? Wake and Make back at it. Got the shop ready to open here shortly. Figured I'd come in and say hello.
What's up, Jacob? Good to have you jump on the show real quick.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. How's everybody doing? How was your weekend, Cryface?
It wasn't too bad. Stayed pretty busy with the family and the kids and stuff, playing some D&D at the house. It's always fun.
D&D, dynamite.
No, something else.
Oh, not good. I was close.
Now we're using this big dry brush and this little connection point. This is a weird connection point for this model. I'm not going to lie. Interesting choice. Who made this game again?
Atomic Mass Games.
Right. That's right. That's right. So, love these models. Love the details. Love how easy they are to put together. Very unsure about this mounting position. But we're going to see how it goes here.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
definitely pretty cool. Definitely pretty cool model.
it's a really cool pose. Like, that is a cool pose. You know what I mean? I just have a funny feeling he's going to flop around a little bit.
Funny enough, Levi was in here yesterday. He got his first MCP model painted.
Oh, wow.
And is working on his second. First one he painted, Captain America, And right now he's working on finishing up his Iron Man.
Oh, how about that?
How about that?
I'd be interested to see how his Captain Iron Man turned out.
Yeah, they're looking pretty good so
Yeah,
far.
yeah.
He basically just had his undershading done on Iron Man, but Captain America was done except for the shield.
No.
So yeah, I know we're all getting really excited about this content up here at the studio. Matter of fact, I got almost a table full of terrain painted yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
Had a couple little scatter bits, and then we'll have a full table painted. And then we've got looks like close to 2 additional tables that are between primed or raw. So once we kick this off, we're working on getting our hands on a selection of models around here at the studio as well, so we can also help introduce more people to the game.
Well, and it looks like we'll have enough terrain where we'll be able to run all kinds of different scenarios and what have you.
Yeah, switch it up a bunch. For
Yeah,
sure.
that'll be a lot of fun.
And Steve and I are very excited about the potential of even making some content out of some gameplay, maybe doing some pre-recorded battle reports as we get to know the game.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Definitely look out for much more MCP between this channel, of course, and the Hobby Goblins channel.
Well, and I was talking about before, there's so many good games out there right now that like it is cool to see some of these games pick up a little bit more speed.
Oh, definitely. I just want to stay busy on the camera as much as possible because they can't see anything.
But yeah, and you've almost got those X-Men models completed there as well, don't you?
I've got 4 of them mostly done. I've got a couple more boxes to assemble. Might do some of that today. Might paint some more terrain. I don't know.
That sounds like fun. Sounds like a lot of fun. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and add some Bal Red here and start laying in some red on this Iron Man here. I don't know if I told you, but I'm planning on just redding out pretty much the whole model and then highlighting higher for the yellow bits.
Okay. Very cool.
Quickly as possible. I think he should be a pretty fast one, to be honest with you.
Hell yeah.
Again, one of those fun models that's almost all one color. Now there will be a lot of edge highlighting and all these little armor panels on them. But other than that, it should be a pretty smooth project right here. How have you enjoyed painting those MCP models?
Well, they come with their own unique challenges, like we talked about, right? Like there's a lot of the detail you have to pull out with brushwork on, especially the ones that are like just muscle suits, right? Just
Right.
like latex suits or whatever. Pretty shallow details on them, so you can't really get a whole lot out of it unless you use a brush to really pop your highlights, your edge highlights, and things like that into the model.
Right.
That being said, they look great with paint on them.
Yes. No, they do. I definitely do. And again, like I said, the poses and stuff are all really cool. I have a Cosmic Ghost Rider at the house. I can't wait to get started painting that model.
Yeah, that one shouldn't be very short of details. Like that's got a lot of stuff going on with it, especially with the. Do you have the actual one with the big like kind of globe shaped front wheel?
Exactly.
I have seen a couple of STLs out there for variants of that model too.
Oh,
They're
yes?
also cool.
Huh. Yeah, there are a ton of STLs and like variants and stuff. People even have things like Homelander that you can get printed up to use as a proxy for somebody. I'm not sure who that would proxy. Captain Marvel, maybe?
Sentry, or I don't know.
Is Sentry a playable character right now? Is there a Sentry?
I don't know if there is or not, but I would assume there is. I know there's a bunch of characters. 90%
Yes, sir.
of them are sold out on, the distributor website. So that's a thing, but that's a good question for chat if anybody knows.
Well, there are more coming, I know. I saw some Adepticon releases.
Yep. I like the idea of the basically starter army box, right? You buy it,
Right.
it has 10 models in it. What I found interesting about it, though, the X-Men starter, when you look at it, it's 6 X-Men, and then effectively the Brotherhood affiliation pack mixed in with it. So it's not 10 X-Men models per se.
Well, but I guess, do those have the X-Men tag on them? Like if you...
That's a good question, too. That's something we'd have to look at and kind of see from there. I can't imagine that Toad, for example, has the X-Men tag. You know, I'd probably be pretty surprised to find the X-Men tag on Sabretooth as well.
I mean, comic book wise, both have been X-Men, but then again, every mutant in the Marvel Universe was considered an X-Men at one point in time. This red's starting to look...
But I just looked
Nice
at, what's going on, White Chocolate? How are you?
Oh, look at that.
What did I miss? What are we talking about? Oh, just rambling on about MCP. But yeah, I just, the thing that kind of caught me by surprise with that is that you've got quite a few essential X-Men, like Gambit and Rogue, Colossus, for example,
Right.
Kitty Pryde, right? Nightcrawler. There's quite a few X-Men that they do have models for. They do have rules for. So the curiosity is kind of why it wasn't all 10 X-Men in the X-Men box. Now, I'm sure that there's some that, you know, kind of a premium. Like if you want to go buy that that Colossus model right now, it has Colossus and Magic in the 2-piece pack. Well, you know, you can only really find it on eBay unless you're lucky enough to find somebody who's got one at a shop. And, you know, eBay comes with a premium price tag, and they're able to do that right now because it's sold out at the distributor level.
Exactly. Well, that's the bad thing when things are sold out like that. You know, this happens with Games Workshop a lot as well. And then scalpers get a hold of it and start jacking up the prices. And so if you want those things, you end up either getting scalped or finding a third-party proxy model, you know. Which, hey, there's a lot of cool third-party proxy models out there. I'm not going to spite anybody for getting them, you know.
I found the same thing with Juggernaut, which of course I want for my Brotherhood. That's a cool model.
Is it?
That's a cool model. And, you know, in terms of Brotherhood, like, Juggernaut is quintessential.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Juggernaut's one of those enemies that, like, has just been around, always showing up. So, yeah, he is kind of essential when it comes to that. Just like, you know, Wolverine and your X-Men.
Right.
You know?
Right. You know, I would be surprised if Wolverine wasn't a part of the X-Men. He's one of the first things you think about when you think about the X-Men.
Now, here's a question. Is Wolverine's model have the Avengers tag and the X-Men tag?
That is a good question as well. There's actually an app. Let me see if I can source that information.
Well, there you go. See? I like giving people chores. All right, let's take a look at this red here. Yeah, that's looking pretty bold. Now, I think what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to come in with some Magos Purple and just work a little bit into the shadows there before we grab a brush and really start cranking in at some of these panels here. You know. So let me go ahead and throw some of that in my airbrush while you Google.
White Chocolate, you said you guys used to play Marvel Crisis Protocol and got rid of all the models? What's up with that?
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
You were just ahead of your time. You should have held on to them, and we could have caught up with you.
Exactly. That's one of those funny things about Games Workshop, too, that I noticed, where if you have a bunch of models and then you're not playing that army for a while, you trade it in maybe for something else, or you trade it to somebody else, and then all of a sudden the book comes out and that army's OP.
So we have 4 Wolverine, Avengers, Defenders, Servants of the Apocalypse, Uncanny X-Men, and X-Force.
So that then answers my question whether or not you can have multiple tags.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So then your
that was
Brotherhood...
Definitely the case. But let's have a look here. I believe Magneto is one of those in the X-Men starter box. So let's have a look. And he lacks the X-Men affiliation keyword.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well,
So again, kind of a questionable grouping of what's coming in that box. You
I
know
have
what
to
mean?
say I disagree with that. I think, especially Magneto, should be in the have an X-Men keyword. Are there definite villains and definite heroes in this game?
I don't know. One of the things that we've got to do before we get started on making any content is answer all of these burning questions. So.
Oh, you mean like learn how to play?
That's part of it. That is a part of it, right? I mean, maybe we could just get on YouTube and line up some MCP models and make pew-pew noises and people will enjoy it, but I doubt it.
Now, I'm going to say that sounds fun. It might not be very productive, but that does sound fun.
Well, there's nothing saying I'm not going to do it off of stream.
There you go. Now, I'm just taking some Magos purple right now and just kind of tinting these shadows a little bit, or attempting to at least.
White Chocolate says Brian's got a great model of him. I assume he means Juggernaut. I will bring you a badass Kane Marco, he says, 3D printed.
Ooh.
All right, I'll take it.
Now, if you don't know who Kane Marco is, that's the real name of the Juggernaut.
Also good news. I thought his first name was Jug and his middle initial was R.
This is why people don't talk to you.
I'm sure it is. I am sure it is.
All right, we're just going to, because this Magos is so translucent, you do kind of have to layer it on a little bit and let that dry in between. Because you don't want to overspray and then have like a bunch of drips or what have you.
Now, I know you're going to do some sort of OSL stuff with the blasters, right? And the thrusters and whatnot. Now, are you taking that into consideration right now when you're dropping your shadows?
Well, with this model itself, the OSL is going to be pretty secluded into certain areas. So, for instance, on this hand here, this hand I'll darken up beforehand with some purples on the palm part and then do my OSL. But on the back here, you're not going to be able to see any of that. It's not going to have any reflections or anything like that. Now with the chest piece here, I probably won't do a huge glow on that because I don't want it to overpower the front of that model. So probably just a little glow right around it, what have you. And then, you know, down here, I could either just pay attention to the feet or have that OSL come up a little bit on that calf where he's blasting off and what have you. Either way, that's something that I can address later. And I'm going to have to lay in some shadows under that area anyway, so it'll have to be more of a bounce light that you would see.
That makes sense, yeah.
So, yes and no for your answer.
I will take both.
All right, let me, now that that's dried a little bit, I'm going to do one more pass on it just to be on the safe side. Because right under this back right here, I'd like that to be just a little bit darker to really accentuate that arch in his back. And again, I am laying in more shadow around the areas that I believe will be getting the OSL. As you can see, right now I'm hitting the palm of that hand, for instance. At least I think I am. I might have just sprayed the face 5 times, but that's okay. Again, you can mess up in places where you know you're going to have to hit the brush a whole bunch.
White Chocolate just picked himself up a new Evolution by Harder and Steenbeck. Of course, through that link in the video description for Spray Gunner. Big shout out Spray Gunner, of course.
Spray Gunner, great website. All kinds of different things you can find on there for your airbrush needs. Not just the machine or hoses, but you can get the individual parts if you have something break on your airbrush, which is
one
awesome.
of the things they are running a Kickstarter for currently is a silent air compressor.
What does that even mean?
Well, it means a lack of noise. But talking to our rep over there, that when that Kickstarter is done, that's going to determine how many of their inventory go out with the Kickstarter. And there might even be one to send our way to the studio to see if we can pull that racket off of these streams. I don't think anybody really minds the racket, but, you know, I'm sure it would be better without it. That being said, guys, if you don't have an airbrush, right, this step that he's doing, reinforcing those shadows with that Magos purple, well, that can be done by glazing. And in the same method, you're going to want to just do that a couple layers, you know, to build it up and not expect to get the results off of the first pass.
Exactly. And you do want to make sure that you let that dry in between passes. Otherwise, you could end up with tearing or all sorts of things that can go wrong. So just, it's a time-consuming process, you know. Lay down your layer, let it dry, lay down another layer. There's really no quick way to do that, unfortunately. If one of you guys out there, maybe you white chocolate, find a quick way to do that, since you just got your airbrush, maybe you'll learn something we don't know yet, man. That's the way it works. All right, now we're going to grab this Hellspawn Red right here, and we're going to start just working in some panels. Edging a little bit. Wait a minute. Edge highlighting a little bit.
Much better. Much better. Much more appropriate for audience.
And that's just going to, like I said, get us started at outlining these different panels, separating them so we can see what's what. And then we can kind of start adding little highlights here and there. Ideally, there's not a lot of highlights we're going to have to add here for our red armor. Ideally. So we'll see how it plays out, though. Let me go ahead and grab a pair of gloves. I can't believe I went this whole time with no gloves on.
For shame.
For shame. For shame. Luckily, it was the beginning, so I wasn't going to rub off any paint on the model. Yeah, white chocolate. That evolution will work really well for that kind of stuff, especially with that little adjuster that's on the back. Being able to adjust just how far back that trigger pulls really lets you pinpoint certain areas and really fine-tune where you want that paint to go. That you can't do with a lot of, you know, cheaper airbrushes. Plus, it's just a great form factor airbrush. Just solid work.
Yeah, and the Evolution is just kind of the precursor to the Infinity. The Infinity's got just a few more bells and whistles, so definitely curious to hear about what you think about that Evolution.
All right, we got our red out here. Grab a little water. As always, we need to thin these paints out. There we go. Kind of see there. I got to be super careful because of the way he's mounted. All right, we're going to go for this chest piece right here. Okay. Yeah, that is tricky. He likes to bounce around a little bit because of my shaky hands. And he's on that itty bitty little. Had a funny feeling that was going to be a challenge. Let's see. If I can come at it at a different angle, if that helps at all. A little bit here. Sometimes the biggest trouble is just finding the right angle. There we go. We just want to edge these panels for right now and see where that's going to bring us. Just brightening it up a little bit.
Well, I am about to open up the shop. I'm sure I'm going to pop back in here at some point during the stream. But,
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely enjoy yourself.
I will. Thank you for stopping by. It's always a pleasure. That's right. We're just going to add... Oop, my nose was in the way. Just going to keep adding these little edge highlights here. And we can go a little chunky with this because this is basically kind of our mid-tone color. We're just reinforcing what we've already got here, what we did with the airbrush. Make sure you thin down this paint enough. There we go. Sometimes if you try to thin it down, just a little portion of it, you can't quite get it thin enough. So you got to thin down a bunch of it and then only put a little bit on your brush. There we go. Oh, hey, Johnny Zed. Good to see you there. That's true. That's true. Sometimes, you know, you got to figure out which kind of angle you're looking for. You know, and every person has their own little angles they like. Yeah, we appreciate you lurking, man. We appreciate you taking a look. You know, this is it's a newer thing for me. So I do appreciate you guys indulging me and coming and hanging out while I paint models out of focus of the camera and can't find my right angles. You know, all the fun things. Put my head in the camera, all that stuff. All right. And now if we take our time with this part and do a really good job, it'll look good and we won't have to do any cleanup afterwards. That's always the struggle, you know. Do I hurry up and get it done fast, but have to clean it later? Or do I take my time and have it done the first time? I find myself bouncing back and forth between those two pretty darn often. Oh, always fun having you come by. There, Johnny Zed. You know, I think, I don't know, I feel like that would look pretty cool. I'd have to see that army. The 40K Castellan in an Iron Man colors. You say it didn't go very well, but I don't know. I'd like to take a look. It sounds interesting. All right, we're just trying to highlight all these little panels. I'm not gonna lie, this weird mounting is making it difficult. Trying really hard not to break him off of there. Whoo, shaky fingers. How many of you guys out there suffer from shaky fingers? That's something you have trouble with? I know I do. Yeah, sometimes, Johnny, that, you know, the method in which, or the style of paint job you do, not necessarily the colors, are a thing that doesn't make it quite work out. I've tried to do grim dark on some models before that it didn't work out, and I tried to do more of a clean style on some models, and it really called for a grim dark. So, yeah, I kind of see what you mean there. Yeah, it's hard to come back to those projects there, Johnny, when you feel like they weren't going quite right. You kind of have to re-fall in love with them. Unfortunately, this is another portion of the project, of this model, you can't really rush. You just have to edge all these. God, man, he moves every time I touch him, and it makes me scared he's going to break off. Flip her upside down here so we can get the underside of this shoulder pad. As you can see, I'm getting a little chunky with these highlights, but that doesn't matter because it's red over red. This is really still just mid-tone. Let me get him on there a little better. But yeah, Johnny, you ought to see the amount of things that I have sitting around semi-painted. It's a secret hint, it's too much. I have too many things. There we go. Like I said, this part here, we're just going to go around the model, try to hit as many edges as possible. Some of these parts we're not just hitting edges, like these little top pieces right here on the leg. I want that to be a highlight right there. Nice. There we go. Yes, I have the same exact problem there, Johnny. Too distracted by shiny new things. My ADD is for real. All right, let's see if we can find a few spots back here. Right on the back of this shoulder pad here. I swear. He is going to break off of this thing at some point. There we go. Gotta make sure we make this butt look good. He needs an iron butt, not a flimsy aluminum foil butt. Ooh, okay. It's one of those times where you can see I got a little overzealous with the glue in that spot when I put him together. That stuff always makes it hard painting. So be nice to yourself and take your time when putting stuff together and don't make mistakes. Tell you what. Let me take a quick 5-minute break. Johnny, white chocolate, talk amongst yourselves for a second. I'm also going to secure him a little bit better to this. Sorry about that, guys. I had to see if I could attach him a little better. I don't know. We got some more sticky tack on him. We'll see how it goes. So, all right. I got some more sticky tack on there. We'll see how it holds. Maybe he won't be falling off quite as much here. All right. Now we're just going to continue our little edging for these highlights here. And I'll probably have to take a quick second to look at this model to see what colors kind of go where. Red hands? Does that sound right? I think so. All right. You know what I think? I don't know. Let's keep going with the red. Seem to be getting my butt whooped by these MCP models. I like painting them, but they are deceptively difficult. They always look very simple, but then you get starting painting them and there's usually something to make it a little more difficult. I don't know, maybe it's a lack of experience because I haven't been painting Warhammer and miniatures for 50 plus years like some people, so that's possible. We're just going to add a little bit of this red up at the top here. Right here, this upper part. Of the torso right here, we can add a little extra highlight, just like that. Kind of see there. I know it's kind of hard to see. I'm doing such subtle changes. Let me go ahead and I'm going to grab some of this orange. Nope, that's not it. There it is. Grab the wrong one. Fanatic Orange. And we're going to work a little bit of that in there to give it a slightly more dramatic shift, I think. The shift we currently have going is a little subtle. I'm just kind of mixing those a little bit together with a little more orange than the red. But I want that orange to be a little more red than it actually is so that we're not taking too drastic of a shift. Let's get a little more on there. There we go. Start with this chest piece here. Let's see how well we can get that looking. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing there, Johnny. That's what I keep hearing. Hey, Tristan. Glad you could join us too. Good to see you on stream. So I'm just kind of working this thin down orange on this edge here. We're going to work a little bit of it right in that center area. A little bit up here. Wow, that did kind of come out like a glaze, didn't it? That's all right. We're just going to glaze that up then. Like I said, I had a rough idea for this one, but not a full plan really on any of these MCP models yet. I've been kind of winging them. Let me ask you guys, when you're painting miniatures, how much planning do you do versus how much ad-libbing do you do? I'd be interested to see what some of you guys think about that. Like, what's your go-to? Do you just kind of start throwing paint on the model, see how it comes? Or do you like to plan to the nth degree beforehand? Because I struggle both ways. I struggle kind of deciding which one I want to do sometimes. There we go. Add a little bit right there. Add a little bit more of this orange up at the top of this little panel right here. We're going to add some at the top of this shoulder pad. I think we're going to have to get more of the red parts done and kind of move a section at a time on some of this, to be honest with you. I think that's going to work the best for this particular model. And we're going to flip it around. Ooh, Oof. You know what? Oof. That's going to annoy the crap out of me. I've heard recently that double-sided tape is a good way to go. I think I'm going to try that next time. Looks like Johnny says, I planned and I find out I've misplaced a pot of paint I needed, or another color has dried up, and then I wing it. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, impatience is a hard thing to get over, especially for me too. You want to get to the good parts, and then the tedious parts, you kind of want to skip over as much as you can. But you can't do that. You got to get done with the tedious parts. That's part of it. All right, come back to this shoulder pad here. Now I'm actually got the straight up Fanatic Orange right now. I'm just going around these panels. It's working a little bit better than the red did. For the darker areas, the red is good. And if you wanted to take more time on it, the red is good. But in this case, we're kind of wanting to move along so I can play this game with my buddies. So we're making a little bit more of a dramatic jump here. There we go. Let's just come over to this shoulder pad here. Just gradually working that orange in there. Oh, can't even see what I'm doing. There you go. See, normally I want to brace, but I can't. So I'm having to find somewhere else to put this finger here to brace. Yeah, that's right, Johnny. When you can rein in that impatience, it's like being a superstar. It's just hard to do that. Yeah, I struggle with the exact same problems. I have a whole bunch of Trench Crusade models right now that I'm on the edge highlight, the white armor phase for my color scheme, and man, is that tedious. So yeah, I definitely get it, man. Ooh. See if I can make it so you guys can see exactly what I'm painting right here. I'm going to add a little bit of orange to the edge of that there. Go back over to this side here. We're going to work a little bit of that orange up into this upper left-hand corner of this panel. To the upper area of this panel. upper area of that panel. And then around the outside edges. And this is turning into a very gradual change, but sometimes that's the way you got to work it. This orange, Fanatic Orange, has a liquidy type of consistency too, so you do have to apply it either thick or in a lot of layers. And don't worry about getting any paint in the recesses here, because this looks like something that could benefit if you wanted to do a recess shade at the very, very end, or maybe right before the very end, something like an oil paint, so you can clean it off nice and easy. That would look pretty cool. I don't know if we're going to do that on here, but don't freak out if you see a little bit of paint get in the recess, because we can fix it later on. Alright, I'm going to throw a little bit of orange right there, but this upper layer on this waistband is going to get it pretty good. A little highlight right there. Bring our edge highlight down, over. And you know, edge highlighting, you're just tracing. You're just tracing that line the best you can. And don't worry about mess ups. We're going to come back, clean up some of these other areas. This area here we're going to get with a different color. So if we get some orange paint over there, it doesn't matter because it's going to get painted over anyway. That's okay. Right now the focus is just getting the red. Let's get this red paint going. Right around that wrist there. And this little panel right, ooh, got a little too much paint on there, but we're going to use it. God, see how wiggly? So wiggly. All right, now I'm flipping them over and we're going to pull this way here. That little bit of orange highlight. Now I got a little bit too much orange on that glove. So we're going to take a little bit of the red here and blend that back out. All I'm going to do is just go back over that little area, some of that red. It's starting to kind of take shape in my head there a little bit. Let me, do a few metallics here. Now this is actually that mix we made earlier, the Fanatic Orange and the red. And now I can use that to kind of blend a little bit. Anywhere that could use it. And that is the benefit of working with such subtle tones too. Sorry about that. Is that you can get pretty good gradients pretty quick. It doesn't take a whole lot of back and forth to get something that looks fairly good. Reinforcing this edge highlight right here. Now we're going to come back and do this one. This is a little bit of a chunky highlight because I'm going to just add a little extra blend on that. Alright, let's go over there to the other side of the chest. I want to take a little bit of this orange and just run it along the rim of that highlight there. Do the same thing right under here. Right there. God. Uh-oh. Did I just bend the crap out of him? I think I did. So that's all right. We're just going to have to fix his... Oh, man. We'll just have to kind of fix him later on. Make him fit a little bit better on that. It's always a struggle. There's always some struggle whenever you're painting miniatures. Something that's difficult. Something that kind of gives you a little bit of a hard time. That's all right. We're just going to add this highlight on the leg here. Let's see, if we're looking at our leg, there we are. That'll be our highlight down that way. Remember, kind of like we did before, we'll draw a few shapes here and there, but it's not going to be as dramatic as when we were doing Red Skull or when we were doing Cap, because all of this kind of blends together pretty well. Ooh. Always make sure you don't have too much paint on your brush. That little highlight. Same thing over here. Want to highlight that little edge. Right on the inside here, right around this little section. So that little highlight. Blend that leg highlight over. There we go. All right. So now looking at this side, want some orange over that way, some orange going that way, some orange up here, that was quite a bit of orange, but that's all right. Good, good. Now we need to throw a little orange right at the top. Well, actually, let's do that red first. Because his butt's a little dark right there. So we're going to throw a little red on there first, just to kind of lighten it up before we throw any orange on there. And this is kind of our angle. So we're just going to go right at the top. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I hope you guys enjoy this kind of format. It's not so much teaching as it is, you run through a project with me and we'll see how it goes. And I hope you guys are enjoying this MCP stuff. What are some other games that are out there that maybe I wouldn't be aware of? Something that has some miniatures maybe involved in it that's pretty fun that you guys know of. Hit it up in the chat there. Let me know what you guys are playing. It's always cool to find new games. And if there's one thing that I can leverage from doing streams like this is learning about cool new games from you guys. Might as well take advantage of it, right? Let's see. Like I said, we're just going to keep going around looking at different areas. One thing I am going to do, though, is I'm going to grab some Leviathan purple. And that's super dark. That's almost a black. And we're actually going to use this as a black to blacken in stuff that might be metallic or things that aren't going to be yellow. And what that'll do is that'll help us kind of visualize it a little bit better. So for instance, this belly part right here, I'm going to do that in the yellow. But this little circle over here, that's going to be metallic. And then once this is dark like that, I find it easier to kind of see the different sections of the model. Not to mention it creates a nice outline, shadowy outline for those areas. We're just going to take that off for a minute. Yeah, that'll help us out moving forward there. To see what's what. You know what, let's do this little section over here too. I know this is kind of a big section, but I think it'll look cool in either a gray or a metallic. Got a little bit of that purple on there, but that's fine. We can touch that up. It's all only paint. You can always just paint over it. Oh, I see. Yeah. See, that starts to take a little better shape there. I think this section right here could be a metallic too. Maybe to separate the yellow from the red up here. That will eventually do. Where's that other circle on the hip? Let's grab that. There. I'm just kind of running the tip of that right into that recess and then pulling out from it. Yeah. Well, there we go. He officially came off. Look at that. Ah, dibby-doo. Ain't that something? Well, I kind of figured that was going to happen. But that's okay. Let's go ahead and we'll get this other part of the arm here that we did on the other side. The one fun thing about putting him together was anywhere there are two pieces meet, it just looks like panels. So you didn't have to worry about having big seams or anything like that. Let's see, it looks like Johnny Zed said Infinity and is that Malifaux? Have some absolutely great looking minis. I'll have to check that out. Infinity sounds familiar. I've probably seen it 9 million times. And you show me a picture of it, I know exactly what you're talking about, but right off the top of my head, can't picture it. right, let me see what else we can paint black here. Maybe, I like the idea of the knee pads maybe being metallic. Well, actually, let's do these circles right here. I'm going to grab a little bit of water for that Leviathan. And then this will match those other circles. We'll also do the inside area. This would also make a really good pin wash. If you wanted to pin wash the whole thing, this color would work really well for that. It's not quite black. It kind of fits with that purple that we were using at the very beginning there. That looks pretty cool so far. And again, these are parts that are going to be Malifaux. Yeah, Malifaux. That was the name of that game. All right, I got it right. But these parts are going to be metallic, so that's why we're darking them in like this, you know. But it does help me kind of see what I need to do next. Which parts need to be what colors. Because it's always contrast. So you want to try to like not put the same color next to each other if you can help it. Find temperature differences to put next to each other so that there's contrast. Texture differences, bright and dark differences. Just about any way that you can add contrast to parts that are next to each other, especially. It's going to help those parts stand out a little bit better. And you know what? We're going to go in between here, here, almost like a pin wash on this knee pad. Oof. I hate holding the model like this, but it seems like that's what I'm always doing. Okay, it looks like we actually need a line right there. Starting to look pretty cool. All right, I'll tell you what. There, see how he looks there. It's getting a little better. Not sure exactly where to go with the feet here, but let's go ahead and start highlighting up that midsection so I can get a little more going on this model. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that Fanatic Orange and we're going to, instead of just doing a highlight, we're going to put this over most of it here. But I'm still going to be putting it in spots where I want a highlight. So we're still going to do our shapes like we do on the other models. So we want a little bit of reflection on this. Let's go over here. Do that little edge right there. You see we're being a lot more opaque with it this time. Or you don't see. There you go. Now you see. I'm not doing a full non-metallic metal, but this is going to look, you know, maybe a little shinier than the red bits. I do need to grab a yellow though. And for today's yellow, we're going to be using Skulker. Maybe not. You know what? Let's grab this Craven yellow. We'll give that a try. And we can also mix that in with a little bit of the orange. To give us a little bit of an orange highlight. I have a funny feeling we're going to have to brighten up this yellow quite a bit more after this. And see, we're almost, let me get you back in camera. We're almost getting rid of all of that red here. We're just keeping it in the darkest areas. That Craven yellow might have been a little too pale. Thinking it was. There we go. Grab a little of this orange here. There we go. Grab a little more of that Craven. And I want to highlight underneath right where that highlight is. A little bit of an edge highlight here. Bring that edge highlight all the way around. There we go. It's starting to look kind of cool. Just so I can move it out of the way, I'm going to water down this Leviathan purple. When I say move it, I just mean I'm going to darken down that chest part so it's kind of out of my visual field of reference a little bit. I'm going to come back real quick too. Do a little bit of a pin right here where we were just highlighting. Just to accentuate these areas a little better. There we go. And up the side here. There we go. Starting to look pretty cool. Kind of see where we're headed here. Let's grab a little more of that orange, because we could use it to match this other side over here. This edge highlights a little brighter on the other side than it is on this side. All right, it's starting to get there. Let me take a quick bathroom break, guys. And maybe I'll be able to think of a quick way to mount him a little bit better. Or not, we'll see. Give me one sec. All right, I'm back, and I did not think of a cool way to mount him. So we're just going to keep working and have to hold him. All right, so looking here. We're going to continue to clean that up just a little bit real quick. But what we are going to need is a little bit of that shadow color. That color we used before, there it is. That was the Sword Hilt Burgundy. And I'm going to actually use that for these yellow parts. We're also going to grab, this yellow is a little bright. So we're going to try that Skull Killer. It's a little darker. You can kind of see the difference, excuse me, between the two there. We're we're going to work a little bit of that in between so it looks a little less orange. We get a little more, or a little less brass and a little more goldy in there. There we are. That's already starting to look a little better. Got a little too much paint on our brush, just a little bit. And this is a much better yellow than we were using a minute ago. Really making it look a little bit more like what we were hoping on. That's looking pretty sharp. Just going to take him off of there. Now these leg parts here, I'm going to do those into the yellow too. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to take that yellow. We're going to do our highlights just like so. We're going to follow that same line. Create a little edge there, be a little loosey-goosey with it. We got a little sketch set up right there. Now let's grab that orange. Work that on the outside edges. Let's flip him upside down so we're not getting in the recesses here. How many of you guys are out there cringing because I'm holding the model like this? I find myself doing this way too often. Maybe you guys out there have some suggestions for mounting these things, little models like this. What do I do? Because I can't really pin that. What are we supposed to do? I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes this stuff is just difficult. Grab that orange a little more. And we're just working that orange in between the red and the yellow. And I'm going over the yellow just a little bit too. Go across here. A little yellow or a little bit of that orange on this side too. Even though we're not quite sure what we're doing on that side, we still want to go ahead and get that moving. Did you guys hear that? Stupid phone alarm was going off. You'd think I'd have that checked. See, we're not going like full non-metallic metal. It's just kind of shiny. There we go. Alright. I can see what I want to do is take a little bit of that orange and a little bit of that burgundy we had before and mix that together. Mix a little more of that together. Maybe take a little bit of that too. Now I'm just going to work a little bit of that shadow way into the shadow areas there that we can barely see. Right in there. Ooh, that was a little too much. It's alright, just paint. It's always just paint. Could actually use this on some of the red areas too. There we go. A little more of that burgundy in there. Shading out some of these redder areas. God. Starting to get somewhere. Yeah, again, this is kind of a tougher model than, same thing with all of the other MCP ones. They are deceptively difficult sometimes. It's a good thing I'm wearing gloves, otherwise I would have rubbed a whole lot of paint off of this model already. Starting to look pretty cool. Let's grab a little bit of our orange. We're going to blend in this yellow just a little bit more. Just work that right where the two colors meet. Make that change just a little less dramatic right there. And then over on this side here, I'm just going to go over it with the orange. Pull that edge down. Because that's more of a bounce light, so that needs to be a very sharp, dramatic change all the way across. A little bit of that orange over here. A little bit over here. All right. Let's grab a little bit more of our Leviathan. We're going to do some recess shading. That seems to be just the way we're going to end up doing this. Because that's how it works sometimes. Sometimes it just is what it is, and you let the model itself determine what you're going to do next. Just recess shading right there. Alright, and we'll hit the recess shade from this side now. We're going to have to do this, but redo this, but as we paint more and more of the model. But I find that it helps me keep track of how things are looking, what the next color is I need to put somewhere, that kind of stuff. Keeps me nice and organized. That's looking pretty sharp. Not too bad so far. I'm starting to seriously doubt if we're using any metallics on this. I don't know. I've been kind of doing this as a unintentional non-metallic metal, apparently. We're going to also work some of this right down in there. And those in-between joints. The wrist here too. I'm just kind of blacking out at areas that we don't necessarily know what we're going to do with yet, but we know that we're going to have to repaint them. So starting to look pretty cool. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, the yellow's looking pretty cool, I think. Yeah, I think you're right. It does look a little, because with Iron Man, you're going off a comic book. Even in the movies, the movie has a very comic book feel and look to it, and visual style. So, and in comic books, it's yellow. It's not gold. And I think that's what your eyes kind of want to see with that stuff, is that yellow. But so yeah, maybe that was it. I don't know. I'd have to see. I'm sure it also depends on the gold paint you use. So that's also another factor that could be playing its own part. All right, let's go ahead and grab the yellow on the other side of this leg. If I can figure out where that highlight goes. And really that's the challenge to all of this stuff, is just figuring out where your highlights and shadows go. So we're going to have a highlight here. Highlight here. Little highlight there. And then we're going to have a highlight right there. And that's where that muscle of the leg kind of turns. And we're going to do a little bit of an edge. There we go. We got a sketch going. Well, not even just cell shaded there, Johnny. You know, just illustrated, I should say. You know, you can have gradients. You don't necessarily have to have those sharp lines. But giving it a more comic booky and illustrated kind of feel is definitely, for these models, a good idea. I need to grab a little more of that orange on my palette here. Mine's dried up. The thing I also think we're going to do is grab some of this Enchantress and have that ready to go over here. Because I have a funny feeling that that is going to need to go into the shadows of everything over here. All right, I'm going to mix these together. You know what? We are going to take a little bit of that, just a little bit. There we go. That's more of what I think we were looking for. It's almost a brown. Oop, I need a little water in that. That's pretty thin. Just work some of that into the shadows there. And then we're going to take some of that orange, work that into our highlights again. And then a little more of that orange up here. There we go. A little more of that orange, because we want that pretty opaque. Especially on these yellow parts. All right, let's grab that yellow again. And I didn't even clean my brush. We just work a little bit of that orange in there as well. That's fine. Man, my phone keeps going off. Exactly. Well, you know, it's a funny, you know, Johnny Zed says here, the yellow is really more orange ochre than true yellow, except for the brightest highlights, too. Yeah, that's kind of, you want to be able to leave that room to highlight, you know? Maybe you might have like a nice yellow dot, but you do want to leave room for those bright, bright yellow highlights. Oh, don't worry, by the way, Johnny Zed, I use the wrong terminology all the time. All right, back to this. Make sure my phone didn't go off again. Watch it do it again, though. Is anybody else getting too old for technology? I feel like I am. Starting to become my grandparents, I swear to God. Don't know how to operate phones. Social media seems like a nightmare to me. I don't know what's going on. Oh, well, I know what's going on. I'm getting old. but you know. Sorry, a little old man rant there. Oh, well, thanks there, Johnny. He said it still reads as very yellow against the red armor, though. Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. Of course, that that really dark recess shade that I did helps out quite a bit. Yeah, it's starting to get pretty cool looking. I think I needed a little more yellow in that abdomen area. Just a little bit. And I'm going to start with a little bit of an edge highlight. There we go. That's starting to look 100 times better there. Let's clean up a little bit of this leg down here too, where we added that Leviathan purple. Right, that's looking pretty good. Put a little water in my Leviathan, and then we'll use that again to recess shade that leg, this other leg. And this contrast paint, you know, it works as a good recess shade, I find. It's one of the things that I use contrast paints for. I like the term speed paint, I think, better that gets used. And I think about that in terms of how it flows. Quickly flows into the recesses. I think I like that. Because contrast, I don't know. I don't really use it like that. I don't know about you guys. But how they're intended, how they're sold to create that kind of mid-tone doesn't ever seem to work out as well for me to use them in that way. All right, we're making progress. All right. And I am looking at that mask and I am not even sure what the angles of that thing. We'll come back to that part. Do a little recess shade right underneath his chest armor here. You know, that's the thing. Once you make a decision, something like this recess shading, now I've got to do it all over the model. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? That's looking pretty cool. We need to clean up some of that red on his codpiece. That's right, I said codpiece. Calm down. Don't get too excited. Ugh. That'll help that a little bit. We're going to work some of the red into this leg here. So that reads a little more reddish. And this red we've got is got a little bit of orange in it. It's got an orange feel to it, which was kind of one of the reasons why I picked it, because I figured it would go into our highlight pretty well. Oop. Whoop, I made a mistake. Can you guys see the mistake? Yeah. That little band right there goes all the way across. But that's okay. That's why we work with paint. I keep saying, you can just paint over it. Well, now we're going to see that you can paint over it. Leviathan purple. I'm not sure what color I'm going to make these, if these are going to be the same yellow or not. What I'm going to do right now is just kind of darken them in so they're out of the way. I'm not going full opaque. I watered that down a little bit, that Leviathan purple. I think that helps a little bit. Grab that yellow just a little bit more so I can get rid of this black line that's not supposed to be here. There we go. Looking good. I think this is coming out okay. Let's go ahead and we're going to do yellow on these parts of the arms. I'm going to go highlight down there, highlight up here. Just like that. That'll be kind of our sketch right there. Now we're going to grab our orange next. Start blending that in there. This isn't too difficult. It's more just going back and forth between the yellow and the orange and your red. Trying to create these gradients here. Just working that orange in between the yellow and our base red. Well, that time I just put it all over. That's okay. That'll give me room to highlight. Not sure about this back arm piece yet. Not sure. Well, for our red, I am going to take a couple of yellow spots just in some corners. See how that looks. Maybe do a little yellow line right there. Oops, that's a little too much, but that's all right. We can clean that up. Grab our orange, and we'll come back and we'll clean that we just did up a little bit. Blend it out. Ooh, that's looking pretty sharp. I was hoping to get this model done today. I don't know if I'm going to get this Donald done today. Although that wouldn't be much of a surprise to you guys, huh? Those of you who know me personally know I'm a very slow painter. I don't know if that makes it great for doing streams. We're going to figure it out. We do have some pre-recorded content in the works, planned up, that we're currently working on to get to you guys. I know I personally cannot wait to get going on those kind of projects. We've got some props sitting around too that are waiting to get painted. Wonder if that's something you guys would like to see on maybe a Wake and Make episode, is painting up a bolter or doing the chipping and weathering on something like that, like a life-size bolter, life-size chainsword or something. I don't know. You guys let me know. Oh, this is looking... It's starting to get pretty cool there. I'm going to grab some of that red. I'm going to work on that hand a little bit and that forearm. Just working that red in there. And I know I say it every time, but I'm not really paying attention to my blends that much. I just want something kind of close. If you look, the blends on that abdomen aren't super, super great. They're okay. They'll do. All right, let's grab some of that orange. I'm going to grab the edge of this wrist area. Oof, that was a little too much. Oop. There we go. Coming along, coming along. All right, let's come back down here to that cod piece again, now that that's dried. I'm going to work in a fair amount of paint. Right along this upper rim. Thin that down just a little bit too. We'll work a little red around this area. A little red back over here. All right, let's grab a little bit of that yellow. Try this again. On that cod piece. That's looking pretty good. All right. This leg here, we're definitely going to put an orange highlight on it. Hitting this knee pad just a little bit here, getting it started. Okay, okay. Need to figure out this other arm. All right, I think I know. First things first, I'll lay in a little orange here on this one. All right, let me grab a little bit of that yellow, and now we'll go ahead and do our sketch. I just wanted to lay a little bit of that orange in first. That gives us our rough outline there. There we go. Working some of this orange in, just in my shadow areas. There we go. While we wait for that to dry, we'll work some orange over here, work some orange over there. It's looking pretty good. We've got an interesting part right here on the back. I'll probably just make that red as well. Let's grab our orange and try to figure out where these highlights are going to go. It's kind of a tough little area to get. Grab a little more orange here, make sure I get it pretty opaque on these highlight areas. On the red, so I can take that red and go back over it. We're just going to keep moving along on our thread. Just keeping at it. This is one of those projects where it's just a lot of the same thing over and over again. You're just going to keep going. Keep laying down the same kind of gradients that you've been laying. working in a similar lighting. Again, if you get into recesses or anything, don't worry about it too much. We're going to end up recess shading it anyway now. Now that we've set that precedent. I'm going to come on this side here, try to blend it out just a little bit here. Alright, now we're going to go back to that upper bicep area with some yellow, now that that's nice and dried. We want to try to really refine this area here. We're going to hit the edge right here. See a spot to clean up right there. It's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and tackle this upper area right above the chest. This little square piece right here. Just going to color the whole thing, that one orange, and this other side we're just going to do an edge highlight of the orange. We need to edge highlight this thigh piece too. I need to get my brain out of the shot. That's too much paint. But again, we don't worry too much because we can fix it. Because it's just paint. In fact, we're going to use it and create a little highlight. Let's go ahead and grab some more of that orange. We're going to use the red to blend that out. Let's go ahead and grab some of our red. Thin it out a bit. There we are. Starting to get those blended a little better.
Man, I'm out here working, missing all my friends. What's going on, Tristan? How are you? Johnny Zed up in here as well. How's that paint going, brother?
It's going all right. You want to take a quick look?
Always.
Always. He broke off the little thing, so I got to fix that. Knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, it was almost foreshadowed
Yeah.
from the beginning, talking about the mounting of it. Yeah, that's looking cool.
I was not anticipating doing that much non-metallic metal, but it just started kind of coming out the yellow.
Well, when you like at the top of it, you'd mentioned you're going to paint it all red, and then you're going to use much stronger highlights on everything to accomplish the yellows. So like, I kind of anticipated you were going to be going the NMM route for it, but yeah, no, it's looking sharp.
Well, and me and Johnny were talking too. He attempted an Iron Man scheme with actually metallic paints, and found that it was much more difficult, actually.
To do metallics instead of...
And didn't come out the way he was kind of hoping. And after looking at this, thinks that maybe this is a better route to get that Iron Man color scheme.
Yeah, it's going to be hot. Let me get it in focus so you guys can see what I'm looking at too. Yeah, the big challenge, of course, is, time efficiency, and NMM is never going to be time efficient. So if you set out on a project to do an MMM push, go ahead and pull time restrictions off of it and just take the ride. You know what I mean? Because it's not something you can rush.
That's
right?
true. Well, and like I said too, don't worry so much about your blends. Worry about your highlights and your shadows, trying to get that look of the non-metallic metal. But it doesn't have to be perfect. Let some things, if you zoom in on that even, you can see a lot of little brush strokes and things like that.
Yeah.
If you really got into it.
And now, is this a break where the glue was?
It looks like he just popped out of there, to be honest with you.
It does, which is good. It's way better than just the plastic breaking itself.
Oh, right. Well, he'll be easy to glue on there at the very end.
Well, and you might find that it's actually a benefit to you that he's not in the way for you to paint that, that thruster blast.
That's true.
Coming out of his feet as well. Hell yeah, brother! I'm excited for it. You guys gotta stay on Cryface with me here. I want to see him get a full roster painted up at that Cryface level of showcase work. That'll be absolutely beautiful on the table, especially if we get the pre-recorded content for Marvel Crisis Protocol off the ground like we hope to.
Yes, yeah, that is the plan, and that'd be a lot of fun, I think.
And you're absolutely right, Johnny. The number one, the final boss, as you put it, to defeat is impatience. And 40K does a lot of. It does a lot of putting deadlines on you. Like we've talked about, raising the stakes of the project at hand. I've got to have this thing done by a tournament this weekend. And so you have to kind of throw away the idea of patience and just get things done as fast as possible, which is never going to yield as good a results as somebody who is patient.
That, you got to get those models painted before the next book comes out and completely nerfs everything.
That's true as well. Although in today's 40K landscape, it's kind of better to let the models come out and sit there for 3 or 4 months to get that inevitable nerf to determine if you're even going to want it.
Right.
Hell yeah, man. Looking great. Great to see everybody hanging out in here in chat as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate you stopping by.
Tomorrow night, we are going to be finishing up that Emperor's Children test paint. We definitely like the armor and the trim so far. We've got to figure out things like the color of the sashes, like the tassels and everything hanging off of them, all the other little accoutrements.
I did happen to notice one thing missing on that.
What's that?
Where's the animal print, man?
I don't think we're doing it. I don't think we actually talked about that last Thursday. We brought we brought hobby feedback back.
Oh, cool.
Yes, we had some people asking for feedback on it, and that was one of the things that we discussed in there, is that there's a lot of stuff that we do in painting that's kind of a trick, right? We're going to paint this in such a way that your eye interprets a certain thing. Something like animal print, you can kind of like, it's not a trick. You have to paint the animal print clear and concise.
That's
to
true.
where it reads exactly as what it is. Otherwise, it's going to throw everything off. And this is going to be, I know we're talking about patience here, but this is going to be an efficiency paint job, right? Where we're going to have 60 or so models that we just need to get painted up.
Well, there's a whole army.
Right. We're not going to be able to take the time to do a bunch of showcase stuff at all. We need to get it done so we can get it on the table, and then go from there. Something that's easily repeatable. So as we add units on, we can imitate the process and keep everything nice and cohesive.
That is one thing that's different about Marvel Crisis Protocol versus something as big as Warhammer, is that you can, because you're only working with, say, 10 models, you can take the time sometimes and get them looking pretty cool, or at least a little cooler.
Yeah, definitely. And if nothing else, the time that you're spending on things, even if you are taking a longer time to paint the model, right? You only have to paint that model once.
Right.
The next model you get to make all kinds of other decisions with. And so, like, it is a palette cleanser at the end of every model. Whereas, like, you're painting 60 of something, man, just buckle in. You're going to be here a
Exactly.
while.
Get ready to paint armor panels forever.
We did get quite a bit of that terrain painted up this weekend for MCP as well, and I'm working a couple of avenues. It's really hard to get the models right now, being the distributors basically have just about everything sold out. So I'm shaking all of the trees,
Shaking them trees.
to build out at least 3 or 4 solid rosters. That way, once those pre-recorded start, it's not just like the same roster against the same roster over and over again.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's nice to have, not just for the paint table, but also for the game itself. Skirmish games are a little less taxing on all of the math that transacts during a game of 40K, running all your averages and stuff, like having all the models, all the unique type of units, like all the different unique weapon sets. So being able to dial all that back for gameplay is pretty exciting as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's much more manageable. It's a little more of a painter's game, and that's one of the things that draws me to it. Plus, like you said, each model is a little different. See, each model can be a showcase model if you really want.
Anybody got time for that?
Oh, snap.
It's good to see everybody in chat. I got to head back out here to the shop just to kind of maintain as we go.
Hey, get back to work.
But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. And Cryface, keep crushing it, man.
I'm trying. I appreciate you stopping by. And we're just going to keep highlighting. And now I'm working on this yellow part back here on the back. And in this specific situation, it's just easier to do my edge highlight first. That's looking pretty good. And this is where it gets kind of difficult for something like this yellow, is we're supposed to get really dark down in here. So you just have to be very careful not to over highlight in an area like this. Thanks. Yeah, that's kind of one of my personal painting styles, is I like to use very, very bright colors. Some people, they go very grimdark. They like muted tones, desaturated colors. Personally, I like stuff to be very bright, even when I am working grimdark. But, each into their own. I think something like MCP leans itself very well for brighter colors.
I've done like miniature, like going around going to a small dungeon, nothing crazy. Arm comes back with those goblin ears, gets a special reward, and then just like, they go nuts. It might not be anything, it might just be a few more gold pieces, it might just be, a slightly, like instead of it being like they have a common, maybe they're a low level, like level 3 or something, they only have basic
And these little bitty squares can be a little tricky to paint. Let me get that.
Give them a little bit of a buff on their rolls and their damage. Nothing special, but just something that like they get bored of it and they go in, they go ham. And then they forget, things like logic exist that they don't have to swing with blazing. It's funny to stick a goblin with a crossbow in a cabinet. They had one where like that's one way we're gonna go. They had it. I always like consequences. So I'll put like they found their first town. I was like, I'll introduce them to a basic quest board, a couple basic things that I can easily run up. And they chose they didn't get the chance to make the consequence happen because they chose the wrong quest. They were supposed to check on some farmers, and if they had checked on the farmers first, they would save them from like a small goblin raid, where there was like one hobgoblin, that was it. But instead they burned down the inn because like I got captured. They got captured.
All right. Looking at this further, I think I'm going to separate the neck from the back piece here, because that's going to be a pain in the butt to paint. Sometimes that's how we make decisions, because it's going to be too hard.
The farmers already killed happened. Because if they picked the other quest, the farmers picked that quest, then something was going to happen. I don't know. But then so the goblins
You know, it's interesting. I find it difficult sometimes while doing this to continue talking and to not just focus on the painting.
and our bard opened the door and got shot.
I don't often talk to myself, so it's a little different for me.
I just like walked in there like
I would like to apologize if there's been too much downtime vocally,
didn't think anything of it.
but this project is a lot of doing the same thing over and over again, like we said before.
I gave him like an inkling. I was like, everybody saw him in the kitchen. And he's like, nah, open
Let's go one more layer down.
so funny. I had a good time with that word.
There we go. There we go.
You just gotta, once you know what your party wants to do, you just build around that aspect. You've got you got the good role players, you build around role play. You got people who want to fight and kill stuff, you build around that.
There we go. Yeah, I think that's going to look a little bit better. And then, like I said, all these black parts, we're going to figure out, probably going to do like a gray metallic. Maybe even it could be like a gray plasticish type material. I'm not 100% sure yet. But I don't think a metallic silver is necessarily going to work great right there, after we've already set up a precedent of all of this non-metallic metal. Man, whose idea was that? Oof. I'm really creating more work for myself. All right, let's come back to this yellow part here. Cool. All right. Grab some orange. We're going to orange out the bottom part of these pieces. Layer orange back over here. We're going to have to do a recessed shade on this part, that's for sure. Here we go. Ooh, it's getting hard to get to down in here. That's all right. We'll be able to clean that up. Let's grab some orange over here on this area over here that's going to be red. Man, this orange is getting work. Double duty on the red and the yellow. That's right. Always trust the process. You know, you got ideas, but you're going to have to wing it at some point. That's just the way it is there, Zed. If we're talking about the same thing, I could be wrong. Take some of that red and work it into this upper area. Make these areas just a little more red. As you can see, everything we're working with here is thin down paints for the most part. You know, we're not working with super opaque stuff most of the time. Oop. Grab a little bit of that mix we made before, but watered down quite a bit. Do a little glaze on his butt cheeks here. Get him a nice butt glaze. There we go, it's starting to get pretty cool looking. Oh, yeah. That's right, Johnny Zed. Referring to whose idea was it? Yeah. No, it wasn't really an idea. I just like to make things harder on myself, apparently. That's how I roll when I'm doing my miniature painting. I don't think it's a great idea, but that's how I do it, apparently. So a little more of that in there, a little more of that. Now this is a darker mix of our first two colors, the Sword Hilt Burgundy and the Enchantress Purple. And I'm just going to push this into some recesses. Darken in some of these lower areas. Shaping up this edge highlight right over here. That looks good. I like that. Yeah, that's pretty funny there, Johnny Zed. Yeah, that's how it happens sometimes. Goes unplanned, you end up awake till the next day sometimes. All right, let's throw a couple edge highlights on this knee pad here. This knee pad's looking a little wonky. It needs a little bit of refinement. We're just using the side of this brush, barely touching it at all. Not even worried about being that neat though. We just want to get that edge a little highlighted. And we can always come back, add a little red, smooth it out a little bit. Damn, do I make the knees red or yellow? I'm thinking yellow now. Oop. Yeah, I think so. I think that's the play. There we go. This will give us a really quick look too. Since I've edge highlighted, I did a big chunky sketch right there by where my highlights are going to go. Oop, sorry about that. Yeah, that's going to look a lot better. Yeah, don't ever, Johnny, don't ever decide to magnetize a knight's waist. Don't ever decide to magnetize anything right before bed. It is a bad idea. That's never a short process, it seems like. At least not for me. What about anybody else out there get caught saying just one more or just one more spot to paint and end up painting all night long? I know it's happened to me. It clearly happened to Johnny Zed there. Maybe it's something else you get caught up in. I know the video game, oof. Doesn't matter which one it is. I've been replaying Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And, man, sometimes I get caught up and it's just, let me do one more thing. And that turns into 12 more things. And then I'm up all night. Same thing with Diablo 4. One more dungeon. Oh, it's now been 6 hours. And the sun's coming up. It's not a good situation to be in if you got things to do the next day, that's for sure. All right, let's throw in a little orange on these knee pads here. These itty bitty little details. It's all right, we're going to throw a little of that orange all over the knee pad here, because we can always come back and just add a highlight. And since it's a little thinned down, we're going to get a variance of colors out of it. Oop, Yeah, Johnny, I'm almost 45 myself, and I do not bounce back from not getting enough sleep in the evening. That's for sure. It's like, I quit drinking a while ago, but I'm sure a hangover would knock me on my butt nowadays. None of that going to work hungover. Ugh. Too old for all that. Just throwing a nice edge right here of that yellow. Really bolting it out a little bit. Especially because I'm having to handle the model here, I'm going to have to go back over things a few times probably. There we go. It's looking pretty slick. The feet, I'm not so sure about the feet. That's true. All night gaming and hobby hangovers are bad enough. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to put some orange in a couple spots down close on the bottoms of the legs. I don't think I'm going to mess with those a whole lot down there because I don't know how much OSL I'm going to do in this area here. And we're not going to worry about the OSL in this specific session. But I do want to create some highlights here in a couple spots. Yeah, we'll come back to those bottom parts of the legs there. Now that being said, this top part right here, we do have a good idea how that needs to go. This is actually just a little bit of the red and orange mixed together, and that's just because they were both running low on my palette, and I figure I'll just put them both together to get enough paint to use before I have to add more paint. Little look behind the curtain there on how things actually work sometimes. Sometimes we just make decisions because they're easier. There we go. Keep building that up right there. Now we've got this little box right here. It's the same one you find on the back of a Space Marine leg. Little panel. I'm not sure 100% if we want to do that a different color or not. Probably not. Probably just leave that red. But what I am going to do is put a little more of that Leviathan purple down here to create this shape a little better. And we'll also panel line that just a little bit. We're also going to panel line right here to create that area. Because we're going to have to get yellow down in there. And I want to make sure that we're not painting parts that we don't need to be painting. Or painting at colors we shouldn't be painting it. Minimize mistakes. Okay. Let's go ahead and lay in a little highlight for our yellow parts on the legs so we know what's what with what. This inside portion is where our highlight's going to go on this other leg because of the angle in which we've planned our light. I say planned, I mean the way it's kind of worked out. Let's also go ahead and hit this panel. That panel. See if we can hit some of these edges. Definitely going to have to panel line this area here. See, now this is why I quit doing tattoos 6 months into my training. Because here I can paint over. When drawing, I can erase. But man, tattoos, you got no erasing. Once you've done it, it's done. And I wasn't a huge fan of that. We'll come back and we'll shade these areas. I think that might be a little bit easier than trying to highlight them right yet. Because we need to get the actual full area kind of figured out. There we go. We got some of this yellow in some spots we didn't want, but that's no big deal. Come back and clean that up. Hi, Jody said that's a good one. Yeah, I've been down that road too, where you just got to strip the model. Huh. That's the cool thing about painting these miniatures is that you can strip the model. Get a little more of this orange here. Again, that was Fanatic Orange. I like this orange. It's a good orange. Kind of a tangerine-ish. I'm into it. Just laying in this orange in this leg area here. Creating that transition. Go over here to this one too. Just going to lay this orange right over that yellow. It's going to give me a nice bold yellow, and then we can bring that yellow back in. The yellow gives you a really good base to lay that orange down on top of too, if you want to do it that way. You know, there's no right answer necessarily, right technique for any one thing. It's just whatever works for you in that moment, you know? Whatever you can do to get the paint on there, get the paint on there. I'm just kind of brushing this orange, almost dry brushing, right over that yellow. That's a pretty good looking butt right there. Hey, look, Johnny, if you got an Iron Man Castellan and you're not happy with it, strip that sucker, repaint it. I bet you could knock it out. Make that thing look Iron Man as hell. Let me see how red looks on the back of these arms. That's a part we haven't quite figured out yet. Grab our red. Gross. Give me some of that. Not the best place to take paint from, but it works. Alrighty, let's see if we can't get a little color on the back of these arms here. Well, this one looks like it's just going to be a little bit of an edge highlight. While I'm over here, work with this part of the arm a little bit. Feed some red here and there, wherever I might need it. Just going to lay in some of this red over the top here on this head, just to get it ready. Need a little red over here too on the back of this arm. Top right there. Bottom right there. And this is thinned down red, so I'm just kind of working it in anywhere where I feel like I can use a little bit of a red hue to kind of boost my red areas. Well, I'll tell you what there, Johnny, I cannot wait to see you hit an Iron Man Castellan. I'm into it. Let's see it, dude. All right, while we're waiting the back of that on to dry off a little bit, why don't we work some more red over here. I'm basically just kind of making things more red right now. Some red from this side over here. Kind of stops. And it's got some red right there. It's looking pretty sharp. Oh, Johnny, never any pressure, man. But yeah, drop it in that Discord channel. Let's see what it looks like. I'm stoked. And of course, if you ever got any questions, there's a ton of people on the Discord to help you out there, for sure. We got a pretty good group of guys when it comes to the old hobby goblins. I'll blend this area right here a little more. And back starting to come together. And this is looking pretty sharp for a few hours, you know. Not really a whole lot of time we've spent on it so far. Oh, Johnny, that's one of the things that I say is one of the biggest reasons why it's great to hobby with people. Whether that's digitally or you actually go to someone's house or they come over to your house or what have you. And that's because you're getting experience with somebody else's opinions and somebody else's views, and it's thought processes that you might not have had before. Because when you're just hobbying by yourself, you're only ever going to do what you know how to do or what you think to do. You're never going to have anybody else there to kind of push you along or to maybe make you look at things from a different perspective, or really maybe even just be kind of competitive with and see who can paint the best whatever, you know? Try to one-up each other all the time. Even that healthy kind of competition is really good for your hobby muscles, you know, to really make you kind of spread those wings and like kind of branch out to different areas. Oh, that's awesome, man. And, you know, that's really all we really want out of these streams. If we can get some people to have some fun, maybe something to listen to while you're hobbying, maybe you get some ideas from it, who knows, you know. I know listening to me isn't that great, but, you know, listening to Jacob's pretty good. And maybe I can show you a few things you hadn't thought of in my weird, chaotic way of painting. So... yeah, you know, anytime we can, if we can help you hobby, then we've done our job. That's at least the way we look at it here. Now this is actually a slight mix of our yellow and our orange. And I'm using this just to kind of brighten up these edges on the back plate right here. Just because it was looking really samey to me. See, that looks like it needs to be a light though, huh? I don't know. We'll think about that. Use some of this orange over here. And we're going to highlight right there in that bottom corner. Then we're going to highlight over here. Really punch up some of these edges. At least the front up-facing ones. I'm going to do these down-facing ones on the shoulder pad just because that is a very prominent edge. It would collect or grab quite a bit of light right there. I think that's something too that maybe a lot of, hobby painters don't do as much as professional artists do or something like that, is going out and looking at reference, looking at how light hits objects. Even if you're just in the car and you're looking at the car in front of you and you're looking at how the light hits the different parts of the car and making note of that. I've worked as a professional artist for 20 some odd years, and I've trained my brain now at this point to kind of pay attention to those things around me, Oh, that's cool looking tree bark. How does that colored? How does that highlight? How does that shadow? Same thing with concrete. If I happen to see some worn paint or rust, I might take a picture of it just so I can look back at that later on. And it's just getting those things in your head, because as we said before, you can only paint that which occurs to you. You can only do that which you can think of. And unless you have some sort of outside source affecting you. So, for sure. Definitely, Johnny. Post some stuff on Discord. I'll be I don't go on there a lot right now, but you know what? I'm going to have to start checking out some of the awesome stuff that's out there. I have a lot of trouble with the social medias. I don't know. I'm not a big fan, but I know that Discord's kind of a different animal anyway. That's more of a chat program. So I should pay a little closer attention to it. That's my fault. I know. Yeah, I think these sections are going to have to be yellow. I mean, nothing has to be anything, but it seems like it should be yellow. You know what we are going to do, though? Let's grab our Leviathan. See a couple little sections that we can pick out that need to kind of be blacked out because they're going to be something else. First of all, I want to grab the side piece of this head here. We're going to make this something else. And I think that'll make painting the head slightly easier. And this will be like a metallic gray or something along those lines. Same as the other stuff on here. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and spruce up a few little spots here. Maybe where we got some yellow paint we weren't intending. We need to get some of this in that arm recess there. Re-get some of these recesses. Try to be careful. Emphasize the try. Again, I'm not worried about being messy. If I have to go back and forth a few times on this spot because it's tricky, that's no big deal. I mean, hell, if I get really frustrated, I could grab a panel liner, an enamel panel liner, and do this part. I just didn't want to have to wait a long time for it to dry. Now let's grab this line right here. There we go. That's pretty sharp. We're going to pick up some red. And we're going to... What are we going to do? It's a good question. Let us work on the back of this leg here. Thin that down a bit. Alright guys, kind of running out of spot here now. I'm not sure how I want to handle the head yet. I got to plan that one out a little bit more. I got most of this body done. And we're also going to want to do some other colors and some OSLs at some point. So I think we might call it right about there for right now on this one. Now this one, those other MCP models, I'm going to finish those up off camera. Well, like I said, we're probably going to do an episode where we go back and I show all the things that I did to kind of spruce these up. Not a whole lot, just finishing off the parts that we didn't touch. But I'm pretty happy with this guy so far. I'll give you guys an opportunity to take a look there. There we are. Get an idea for what we're going for. I want to say thanks to everybody that came out, chatted with us today, hung out while I painted part of a model again. One of these days I'm going to finish a whole one. But yeah, thanks a lot guys. Thanks a lot to the sponsors that we do have. Spray Gunners, great guys. Two Thin Coats, great paints, you know. So yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming out again. That was a lot of fun. One of these days, though, I am going to finish a whole model. I swear to God. All right. Thanks again. I hope you had a good time. And join me next week on Monday for Wake and Make. Take it easy, fellas.